What is up, RunPure fam? JJ back here to talk on the games I bet today. Also give you a few breakdowns on each. As you guys already know, I bet St. Joe's LaSalle over 146.5, Bama Vanderbilt over 153.5, and then finally Virginia -1 last night, and then this morning added the team total over 67 once it was released. So I'll go through these three games. I know that the LaSalle game's seen some steam south as well. So look, let's just start right there, right? So as some of you may remember, and I mentioned this in the Discord yesterday, I bet the first matchup between these two over as well. And you guys know, like, for the most part, I don't bet a lot of overs. This year in particular, I've bet a lot of overs, but I think that's more or less because the games have been seemingly reffed a little differently. I mean, look, you could say that about, I guess, any game in particular, but in general, there's been a lot of games that have been heavy fouls, especially late in games. And even like teams, and I mentioned this before, teams with big leads aren't taking the air out of the ball in the second halves, and they certainly aren't taking the air out of the ball late in games. So anyway, I liked this over the first time they met, and it was this exact number, 146.5, and I actually like it over again. Now, I know, I'm not so concerned with the final score of that game. I know that was like 90-83. That's not the handicap here by any means. I'm more concerned about the actual pace of that one, which was just a blaze. Sure, both teams shot really well, but it was also a lot of easy baskets for both, high percentage shots, as the cool kids say, and pace was just impressive. 40 combined assists as well is just wild for a non-Power 5 conference game like this. The big question mark coming in, though, for this game is, of course, St. Joe's playing their first game since January 30th. Now, Jack Forrest remains out for St. Joe's, which I was content with, knowing that Ryan Daly is expected back. Now, he might not start or likely won't start, but he should still see decent run. He's their leading scorer. His absence, though, has allowed some other guys to step up. LaSalle, they've been struggling to score recently, but look who they've seen. I mean, let me pull up and down this who this team's played recently, because this team's basically played every top defense in this conference over a last stretch before their last recent matchup with St. Joe's. So they play St. Louis, St. Bonnie's, Fordham, which Fordham's not very good, but Fordham is good on the defensive side. St. Louis again, VCU, Rhode Island, Richmond. Okay, some of the best defenses in this conference. And then, of course, before that, they play St. Joe's. So for me, this matchup here, especially with St. Joe's coming off a layoff, I don't know how anybody could expect St. Joe's to be good on the defensive side of this game. They're not a good defensive team when they're in rhythm. I mean, this team is basically just a slot reel for points against slow teams. They give up a lot of points. And LaSalle's not by no means a slow team. I mean, as far as adjusted tempo in this conference, they're the fifth best tempo out of 14. So you can't necessarily fault them, again, for their low box scores over a recent stretch. And look, I know they don't draw a lot of contact, but St. Joe's is quite handsy on the defensive end. Both teams actually are, which I would expect some fouls to even pile up in this game, also to convert some extra free throws. A lot of it just like the first time they played, right? Now, I get it. They shot super blazing hot from the field. I'm not saying I expect that this time around. But again, the total at 146.5 for me was an auto bet. And I know that it's seen some steam down come today. But again, for me, I'm not all that concerned. I still have this valued all the way up to 149. So, ultimately, I just like a little more at 145. Also, so the other game I bet, Bama Vanderbilt over. Now, I gave you guys a brief write-up in Discord yesterday, a little more than brief, I guess. So I debated on a few things. I debated on taking Vanderbilt. My big issue was, so Vanderbilt's playing some of their best ball they've played all year. They come into this game, just pull up the exacts. They come into this game with Scottie Pippen Jr. has just been remarkable. And if you look at it, so first of all, their pace has been something I've enjoyed recently. Okay. They really sped Kentucky up, which Kentucky's not really a fast team by any means this year. They really sped them up on offense and defense. Mississippi State, I mean, this team plays an absolute crawl. Vanderbilt played really well with them. They kept pace with Auburn. They kept pace with Georgia. They ran with South Carolina, who wanted to run. They ran with Florida, kept up with them for the most part before, a blowout game versus Arkansas. But again, this Vanderbilt team is kind of figuring things out, especially led by Scottie Pippen Jr. Now, why I didn't like them specifically? Well, their defense, okay? This Bama team, now I get it. Bama's coming off a huge win, right? I mean, they won by 30 against a good team their last game out. They won by basically 30 against Georgia, more than 30 against Georgia, putting up 115. 115 might have been their biggest output of the year. Now, I'm typically not a guy that likes to target an over for a team after they come off a ceiling type game. But my thing is, this team's had a week off. They're home. And first of all, Alabama's an absolute machine offensively at home. And they play Vanderbilt, who just gives up points to everyone. Okay. If we look up and down this Vanderbilt defense and who they've played, okay, 78 to Kentucky, a relatively slow team. Now, Mississippi State 51, sure, but Mississippi State typically only plays in the 60s anyway. Auburn 67, Georgia 70. Now, sure, some of those are faster. 73, 73. Those are faster teams. But if you look at the box scores of these games, these teams didn't even shoot that well. Auburn as a team shot about 36% from the field and still put up 73. Just to go to show you the pace. Okay. Georgia game. Georgia shoots relatively well. They just turned the ball over a ton, which is not really like them. So Georgia as a team looks like they shot about sub 50%. However, just a ton of turnovers, 21, which obviously ultimately resulted in a lot of lost possessions. But Vanderbilt didn't even shoot that well in that game themselves, and they still ended up with 70. This Bama team is going to absolutely speed up Vanderbilt, who we've seen recently is very content to run. Again, they got good guard play. And some of their studs, specifically, again, Pippen and Dylan Disu, playing their best ball of the year. Again, 2 double-digit scores. I got a bunch of role players on Vandy. Now, I'm not saying – now, Jerry Stackhouse has done a good job with this team. Ultimately, it's in his second year. He's looking for trying to turn them around. And they've played really well recently. But again, I know it was a 16 number. I thought about it because I was basically very confident Vanderbilt was going to see steam here. But like as crazy as this sounds, I actually like the over, knowing that Vanderbilt was still going to see some call it CLV. Because I think now it's 14 and a half Vanderbilt. Let me pull this up. And by the way, I haven't even talked on Bama in this game yet. But Vanderbilt, yeah, so it's down to 14 at some spots. To me, Bama is just a team that's going to force this team to run, and Vanderbilt is notorious for giving up a lot of open looks on the offensive end. This is not a team to really screw around with in terms of Bama. Granted, I know Bama plays tremendous defense especially on a per possession basis, but they play super fast. And again, Vanderbilt's going to be very content to run with this team. And I just ultimately really like what I've seen from Vandy recently. Now, where you can beat Bama is inside the arc. This team's very good defending the 3. But Vanderbilt's been able to really do very well inside the arc recently, especially in these recent games where again, their players are just playing more confidently. And then look, Vanderbilt can't stop the 3. They can't stop anything inside the arc. Alabama just absolutely fires from 3. They do a decent job drawing contact. Vanderbilt fouls a lot more than they should. And, overall, these are 2 teams that are above average in assists per field goal attempts, 2 teams that really fire from 3. And here's the thing. As I'm saying, both teams really shoot a lot of threes. Okay. So ultimately, to me, this means a lot of potential runouts for both teams if misses. And these are 2 teams who are relatively efficient from 3, especially Bama, right? So obviously these fall, it's big. Both teams have fairly deep benches. And look, for me, I get it. It's a big number, but I'm getting Vanderbilt basically at their ceiling of the season. And I got Bama at home in what is a relatively soft matchup. Now, you could argue, to me, the only way this doesn't go over would be if Bama doesn't, for whatever reason, doesn't get to 90 or 80, 85 or 90. I'd assume their team total based on this line would be about 88, 89, 90. I don't know the exact team total off the top of my head, but I'd assume it'll be about 88, 89. To me, assuming they get there, I'm very confident Vandy gets 70. So we just really need Bama to get there for us. Vanderbilt's been playing really well. I expect them to roll that momentum right into this game. It's a big game for Vandy as well with how well they've played recently. I know that they lost to Kentucky, but I mean they really kept pace. It's a really, really big uplifting game in my opinion from them, and hopefully they ride it right into here. On the Bama side, this team just has so many scores. I think I told you guys yesterday 5 guys that shoot better than 40% from 3. 5 guys who shoot better than 40% from 3. And that's just outstanding. This is a team that a lot of people consider a dark horse in the tournament. My only issue with a team like Bama winning the national championship is that you rarely, I can't even remember off the top of my head, a team that plays at this type of tempo that won, the last team that plays at this type of tempo that won the national championship. Typically teams like this get really slowed down by good defensive teams. The interesting thing is you rarely see a team that plays at this type of tempo that's this good defensively. It's just they usually don't mix. This Bama team is really good defensively, despite how fast they play. I mean, they got 4 double-digit scores, 5 guys who score about 8 or more. This team is just filled with 3-point shooters. They're deep. They're experienced. All good free throw shooters. I mean, it's one of the better free throw shooting teams in the country. I'd assume anyway, looking up and down these numbers. So overall, this is a tough team. This is a tough game. For people that want to bet the under in this game, I mean, look, God bless you. It could hit. It's a big number. Of course it could hit. But for me, the only way it would actually make sense for this to land would be if Bama just comes into this game unmotivated. Obviously, they're a big favorite, right? So maybe they're just not as up for this game. But Vanderbilt's not exactly a team to sleep on right now with how well they've been playing. So ultimately, I had this a few points off. I had this actually near 156. So 153.5 was a good spot for me to target. And I believe that we get a good shooting performance from both. Now, again, these teams live and die with the 3. So if these aren't landing today, this over is not going to hit. But ultimately, I really like the chances for this to go over that big number at 153.5. Okay, the other bet I like, Virginia and Duke. So Virginia comes into this game off maybe their worst game of the year. Here's what I'll tell you about Virginia, though. Florida State is just an awful matchup for this team. So Florida State's long. Florida State shoots threes. This is just not a good matchup for that zone. Okay. And Virginia's relatively undersized. I mean, I know that overall they're sized okay, but when you play a team like Florida State, obviously the biggest team in the country, they just got pushed around all game. They were forced to make a lot of tough shots. Florida State got a ton of good looks. I don't look at that game. Now, this is your typical bounce back spot, quote unquote, for Virginia. I don't look at this game though as more of that. Like even if Virginia kept pace with Florida State, I would have really liked this spot. It's almost like I can't even call this a true buy low, sell high spot on Duke and Virginia in this game. I just think that Virginia is just a terrible matchup. So the same way I thought Virginia wasn't a great matchup for Florida State, I think Duke's a terrible matchup for Virginia, or the opposite way. Duke is a team that's kind of finally righting the ship, if you will. Okay. They played 2 good games against Wake and NC State. The problem I have with this team is really their defense. When they play a very efficient offense, this team gives up a ton of points, and they play a little bit of an elevated pace. Okay. And here's why I think they're actually going to play a little faster in this one. Duke doesn't exactly have a lot of good jump shooters. Okay. So I think Duke's success in this game is really going to come in transition. They're going to have to not let Virginia settle into the half court offense, and they're going to have to just more or less run. Any missed shot, run. And I say that because, again, this team is just not all that efficient offensively. Now, granted, their advanced numbers look good, but the problem is that when they play good defenses, a lot of their points end up coming in transition. Now, this could happen in this game, but Virginia is so disciplined at getting back on defense that it would be hard to imagine consistently Duke is able to find points in transition. On the half-court side defensively, Duke really struggles against good offense. I mean, let's look up and down real quick. So Wake Forest and NC State, right? So Wake Forest, the 12th best offense in the conference. Okay, let's throw that game out. NC State, the 10th best offense in this conference. I'd argue we could throw that out. Okay, they play Notre Dame, and Notre Dame becomes an absolute shootout. Okay, 93-89. Now Notre Dame's not a team that plays at pace, but again, Duke has tendencies to speed other teams up. Notre Dame, the 4th best offense in the conference on a per possession basis. They go for 93. North Carolina, they are the so even North Carolina, who's the 11th. So North Carolina, I kind of throw out. North Carolina is the 11th best offense in the conference. And I know they put up a lot of points against Duke, but because North Carolina plays so fast, they're exact opposite to Virginia. I don't exactly look at that as a big, like, whoa, what happened there? And then they started giving up a lot of points to Miami. Now, they played good against Clemson at home. This defense has played a little better at home, but I've watched this team. I mean, you guys have known I've bet quite a few Duke games this year. They've been probably one of the biggest teams I've bet in the ACC this year, whether for them, against them, or overs. This team is just not that disciplined defensively. Now, sure, they've gotten fortunate with some teams. Like I would consider the Georgia Tech game, the game that they won by 7. I know I bet Duke. I think I either bet them I bet the game over. I felt very fortunate because Georgia Tech had so many open looks, and that team is filled with snipers, and they just missed countless looks. Now, Duke still was able to pull away with the win there. Virginia's not exactly a team that's going to be all that forgiving in that respect offensively. Okay. Virginia's the third best offense in the conference. They are just so efficient on the offensive end. You can't really foul them because they convert so well at the free throw line. And again, I look at this at a few things. And the other reason why I wanted to hedge back for a half unit, I'll say hedge back, why I wanted to bet Virginia's team total over, I find it very hard to believe if this game shoots out that Virginia loses. Like, to me, the way Virginia loses this game is they just aren't making shots at all. And Duke's able to win a game like, 65-55, 65-60, 60-55. But again, Duke's going to elevate this team's pace. And for me, Duke really struggles with teams that are very efficient from the field. Let's take a look at some of these guys from Virginia, because I know this team now. They have the Marquette transfer. They also have Josh Huff. This team, and they have guard too, who's absolutely lights out. Now he's a little undersized, which ultimately has some teams have been able to take advantage of. Because Iakike, am I pronouncing that right? Iakike. Either way, hold on. I'm on Virginia Tech here. I don't know why. Give me 1 second. Because on a per possession basis, assuming Duke speeds this game up as intended, or as I anticipate they will, because again, this team just lacks offensive weapons to beat Virginia in the half court. So for me, it's gonna provide extra possessions for Virginia. And Virginia's gonna force turnovers. Duke is no stranger to turn the ball over. Which again is going to create extra possessions. Now, of course, this is a home game for Duke, so you'd figure they'd play better. Hauser, the transfer from Marquette, has been really good for this team and really efficient. And I mentioned Jay Huff. Jay Huff's just an absolute monster from three. Trey Murphy, over 48% from three-point range. And we're not talking like a little bit of volume here. I mean, Trey Murphy's put up 87 threes. He's shooting almost 49% from three. Kihei Clark, Kihei Clark, rather inefficient overall, but he's obviously leads this team in assists and ultimately is their primary ball handler. Look, I look up and down this team. They have four guys who shoot about 44% or better from three. This is not a recipe for Duke to screw around with defensively. And again, a team that to me that's comparable to them in how they shoot the three ball was number 1, Virginia Tech. I don't think Notre Dame shoots the three ball all that well. Oh no, 38%. So Notre Dame really made Duke pay, and I just can't imagine. Yeah, Notre Dame made 11 threes, shooting 44%. I just can't imagine Virginia is not going to get open looks tonight. Many open looks from three in this game. And, again, their ability, it's much like the Bama Vanderbilt situation, their ability to convert it, of course, is probably going to be whether UVA wins or loses. But UVA can win in so many different ways. They don't need the three to be falling. This is a very young Duke team. This is a team that I would think, is going to get very frustrated by Virginia's defense tonight. Now, again, Duke has some decent scores. And Jalen Johnson, potential lottery pick. Matthew Hurt's been playing better. Stewart, Moore. They have a lot of guys that are good players. This team is just super young. They're one of the youngest teams in the country. I think it goes to say now, granted, they've won 2 good road games, okay? And they're playing some of their best ball of the year. But again, this is just a different animal they're about to walk into. And I know that they're home, so it's going to help. Not that home road crowds matter all that much in this new version of college basketball during COVID. But this Duke team, you look at the advanced peripherals on it. They don't go to the free throw line. And Virginia doesn't foul. So, where you start to think about where is this team going to find success, okay? For one thing, like I said, Duke is terrible defending the three, 313th in the nation as per KenPom. Virginia as a team almost shoots 40% from three as a team. You would figure they're going to have to make this team pay from there. And then what Duke does really well, especially they've done really well recently, is shoot the three ball. They haven't been doing that well coming into, call it the last 3 weeks prior to that. They've been shooting the three ball really well recently, which has elevated their numbers. But they're really good inside the arc, and Virginia is super stout inside the arc. Duke does not draw contact, and Virginia does not foul at all. Now, I know Virginia doesn't really draw all that much contact either, but Duke is still a little handsy. Wouldn't surprise me if some fouls did get in there. Virginia's not that great on the offensive glass, but realistically, they don't necessarily have to be. They don't turn the ball over. They shoot tremendous from the field, and they do really good against bad defenses. Okay, so again, could this be a spot where Virginia shoots poorly and they not get there, and Duke winds up winning and riding their recent hot streak? Sure. But I think this is a good spot to semi-buy low on a Virginia team versus a Duke team that's all of a sudden playing some of their best ball of the year. On the Virginia side, And again, why I like their team total, and I truly consider it a half unit hedge, because I just don't see a scenario. I don't see a scenario where, I don't see a scenario where Virginia, the only way Duke wins is if they really score. Like that's the recipe to win. So they're going to have to score 65, 67, 68. And Virginia's just so stout on that end that it would be tough for this Duke team, who's not all that efficient shooting the basketball, against this zone. And if this game does shoot out, it's going to force Virginia to play a little faster, which ultimately will lift them up over that team total. And I do believe there is a good scenario where Virginia wins this game and they go over that number. So overall, I really like Virginia in this spot versus Duke. Call it a quote-unquote smash spot, if you will. About a unit and a half risked on this game, which is basically as high as I go for certain action. As most I'm more or less a flat sports bettor. But yeah, basically, so that's it. St. Joe's LaSalle over the 146.5. It's a better number now. Again, assuming like Ryan Daly also gets scratched, I'll like that as well. I'll definitely like that. If he does, I'll like it a little less. I may look to hedge off, but I'm pretty confident he's going to play. Bama Vanderbilt over the 153.5 for the reasons I mentioned there as well. With Vandy playing their best ball of the year and Bama just a machine at home scoring. And then Virginia minus the 1 versus Duke. I think this is just a perfect spot for where this is a bad matchup for Duke. And Virginia should just get countless looks from 3. One of the best shooting teams in the country from there. Should be able to convert. Other than that, I wish you all the best of luck with all your bets. Make sure you get your coffee in. See, got my good coffee again. Make sure you get your coffee in today. I'll be in the Discord, maybe pop it in with some live bets throughout the day, which I'll tag you guys when I do so. Other than that, thanks everybody for tuning in. And yeah, gamble responsibly. Stay safe, folks. See you guys soon.